Guilty, sentence him to 15 years Florida State Prison, and that'll run consecutive to count one, for a total of 24 years.
قضية كاميرون هيرين أصبح حديث وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي وعطف العالم عندما حكم عليه بالسجن مدة 24 سنة. ما المختلف في هذه القضية ولماذا يتكلم عنه الجميع؟ كاميرون هيرين شاب أمريكي من عائلة غنية، كان في سباق سيارات وتسبب في وفاة أم وطفلتها. حكم عليه القاضي 24 سنة وأحدث ضجة في العالم من قبل ملايين من البشر يطالبون بالإفراج عنه. استغرق الحكم عليه 3 سنوات، فالقضية حصلت في عام 2018، وخلال هذه 3 سنوات كان يعيش حياته العادية، يذهب للمدرسة الثانوية وتخرج منها وذهب للجامعة، لكنه كان ممنوع من القيادة وأيضا ممنوع من السفر. وهنا نرى محامي العائلة يطالب المحكمة بالسماح له بالقيادة وأيضا بزيارة أصدقائه في مدينة أخرى والسماح له بالسفر.
The judge lowered the bond to $50,000.
Counsel, I can't imagine what you can say to convince me to allow him to drive.
He's not going anywhere. He's no danger to the community. This is a horrible one-time incident.
وقد سمح له القاضي بالسفر لمدينة واحدة لزيارة أصدقائه.
Mr. Heron, on count 1, vehicular homicide, what plea do you want to enter?
Guilty, Your Honor.
It's been devastating for him and our family. The impact plays over and over in his head. It'll never go away.
How could he do something so stupid? He's a bright kid. It is because the stop and think part of the brain, the frontal lobe, where we stop and think about our action, is not developed.
We also have a perspective on this. So I don't want to seem that I don't feel for the Heron family. I do. But their perspective on what they've lost can't compare to 2 sweet souls that were crossing the street coming home from a party.
This was a crash, not an accident. Please be aware of that. It is critical for you to understand that you've created everlasting pain and depths of sorrow. I can't get the thought out of my head of the entitled monster who killed them. Something happens to me in this room. I remember seeing a chaplain walk out, and I knew she was dead. I can't explain to you the effort and courage it takes to walk into that morgue and see the injuries that you created on her.
نرى الآن ما حصل في المحكمة في قضية دامت 3 سنوات.
All right, good evening, everyone. Is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defendant ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sorry, it took me a little bit longer than anticipated, but there was a lot of information to consider. Let me just start by saying that, as multiple people have observed, this is a particularly difficult case because there's really nothing that the court can do that's capable of fixing the harm that has been caused to the victims in this case. And in this case, there wasn't any evidence, and nor does the court believe that there was any specific intent to do harm, in this case, to the victims. But there was intent to drive at an egregious speed, 102 miles an hour, regardless of the consequences and regardless of who that ended up harming. And then the second part of that, the second component, is the harm caused. And in this case, it's just impossible to have greater harm than the harm that occurred in this case, which was the loss of a mother, loss of a baby, and really the loss of a family as it existed when this occurred. And the court doesn't find that either the minimum or the maximum is appropriate in this case. I've said it several times, the serious nature of the offense, egregious nature of the conduct, and mostly the harm that's been caused prevent me from putting this as a bottom of the guidelines minimum case. But the departure bases argued by the defendant did provide some reason not to put it at the top of the maximum. And specifically, the court did take into account that the defendant's 18, certainly responsible for his actions, and he's being held accountable for his actions. But the age of 18, the court finds, is a mitigating factor and shouldn't put this at a maximum. Also, the complete lack of prior criminal history is something that the court considered as preventing this from being at the top. So having said all that, the court is going really toward the middle between the minimum under the guidelines and the maximum punishment permitted under Florida state law. So on count one, vehicular homicide, the court's going to adjudicate the defendant guilty, sentence him to 9 years in the Florida State Prison. On count two, same charge, court will adjudicate the defendant guilty, sentence him to 15 years Florida State Prison, and that'll run consecutive to count one, for a total of 24 years Florida State Prison. Count three is a misdemeanor, unlawful racing on a highway, so the court will adjudicate the defendant guilty, sentence him to time served. Give credit for time served, I believe, 2 days. Court will impose mandatory court costs. Mr. Heron, you have given up the right to appeal the determination of your guilt or innocence. You do have 30 days to appeal the sentence of the court. And I'll direct the bailiffs to take Mr. Heron into custody.
وبالرغم من أحداث هذه القضية المروعة وما حصل في السوشيال ميديا، إلا أني أريد أن أذكركم بمن هو أقرب منا، خالد الدوسري، أخونا المسلم المسجون في أمريكا بغير وجه حق.